Hello folks, this is Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing here in Dallas, Texas. I want to go over steering wheel cleaning. This is pretty straightforward. You want to be able to clean the steering wheel. We're all touching it with our greasy, slimy hands and getting oils and grease from our hands transferring to the wheel. The steering wheel's probably, besides the carpets on the floor, this is an area that gets pretty dirty. We're touching it all the time. I want to talk about a couple different tools that you can use to clean the steering wheel. Now for me, I can use something like a little toothbrush here. This is great to be able to agitate my cleaner and work around the steering wheel. This works great. I can also use a magic eraser by applying the right amount of pressure, using some common sense, put some cleaner on the magic eraser and just go over the steering wheel gently to pull the grease and grime off. Again, this is leather. I don't want to abrade the leather. I don't want to be too aggressive with the leather, but sometimes we've got to have something that has the ability to be able to pull the grease and grime off it, so some of these little tools will work pretty well. I've also used a Scotch-Brite pad. This is a non-abrasive pad, and this will help sometimes when you have a steering wheel that's been neglected for a long period of time. And what I like about it is I can put it in my hand and actually wrap it around the steering wheel all the way around the circumference of the wheel and kind of lightly agitate and pull some of that grease and grime off. I also use something else which is kind of interesting to me. This is a bug sponge. I actually have a couple of these sponges. This happens to be made completely out of microfiber. I know some of these bug sponges will have like a nylon coating on them. This actually has a microfiber coating on it, but it's got a little bit of bite to it. It can be, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but just enough to be able to pull off some of the grease and grime that might get on the steering wheel. Now there's a couple of issues when we're cleaning the steering wheel. Some of us may want to spray the steering wheel and apply our cleaner that way. If you're going to do that, what I did is, you can see on top of this dashboard, I've got like a microfiber towel. I think this is like a 24 by 24 microfiber towel, and I'll cover up the plastic lenses behind there because I don't want any overspray going on the plastic lenses and possibly or potentially staining some of those plastic lenses, so I avoid that altogether. But for me, typically, whether I'm using a sponge like this bug sponge here, which is completely gentle enough for the steering wheel, or even a toothbrush, I don't like spraying my cleaner directly onto the steering wheel. I don't want any overspray. But too, when you're agitating stuff, when you're agitating a little toothbrush on the steering wheel, you can get some slings, so it's not a bad idea to cover up some of those plastic components or lenses on the instrument panel. Now for me, with this particular steering wheel, it's not in all that bad a shape. I maintain this car on a monthly basis, so there's not a lot of grease and grime that builds on it, but there's still some stuff on there I've got to get off. For me, I'm going to take something like this. Let's say I was going to use the toothbrush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lay the toothbrush on my microfiber towel, something like that. And what I can do is take my Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner and spray it onto the toothbrush, onto the head of the toothbrush. And it would look something like this. And I've got it wrapped around the microfiber towel, so I'm not worried about a lot of overspray, and I can just concentrate on the toothbrush. I'll hit it with the cleaner, and then what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll just lightly agitate this steering wheel and work my way around. Now when it comes to steering wheel cleaning, because this thing is round, right, we got to make sure that we get all the way around the steering wheel. That's really important to be able to pull up that grease and grime. Sometimes you may even want to turn the car, put the key in the accessory mode and turn it on to the accessory mode and turn the steering wheel so you can see all the way around the steering wheel. That's kind of important. You might miss something if you're working directly in front of the steering wheel or from the side. But let's say I chose this method. I can go in here with my toothbrush, get it off, that's fine. Then I just want to take my microfiber towel, go ahead and mop up after myself. And actually I was able to pull up a little grease and grime on here. Leather, this happens to be a leather steering wheel. Leather can deceive you quite a bit. You may think that it looks relatively clean, and for the most part, I see people will just use a microfiber towel, spray some of their fluid or their cleaner on a microfiber towel, and come here and kind of mop up and agitate at the same time. This, unfortunately, isn't effective enough, especially when you have a really bad steering wheel. And here I was looking at this going, okay, it's been a month ago since I've cleaned this steering wheel. It's not that bad. It looks that way to my eye. but leather can be awfully deceptive. And that can be the case for leather seats, it could be the case for leather steering wheels, maybe some other leather components around the car. Sometimes we just got to be, it's a fine line. People think you got to be really gentle with this stuff, and for the most part, yeah, you don't want to go in here level 10 and apply too much pressure and ruin the coating, because all leather, modern day leather inside your car, has a plastic coating on it. So we don't want to abrade that, but you can be, I hate the word aggressive, but you can be a little bit more aggressive than most of us have been trained to think over the years when it comes to leather. You can get a little aggressive with it. And I'll show you with this little magic eraser. I'll spray some cleaner on it. I'll be careful with the overspray for the purpose of this video, but I'll spray a little cleaner on this. And now I've got some of that cleaner on the magic eraser. I can simply go around this wheel, and as I do this, which is really interesting because I just cleaned this a month ago, but it is what it is. There's grease and grime that comes off our hands. Even when we think our hands are clean, we've got natural oils coming out, and you can see that I'm pulling some dirt off the steering wheel. I'm not pulling the coating off the steering wheel. It's not brown. It's actually got a little greasy grime to it. So I'm going to come in here and just hit this area that I hit with the magic eraser lightly with my towel, mop up after myself. And I don't know if the video's picking up, the lighting's not that great, but boy, I can see a big difference in this part of the steering wheel here versus up here. It's much more cleaner down here. So a magic eraser can be very effective. You don't have to apply a lot of pressure, just go over it with some light pressure and go ahead and pull up that grease and grime. One of the other reasons why I wanted to make this video is there's some areas around the steering wheel we want to be careful about. These manufacturers today have all these buttons on these steering wheels, right, to control the radio, maybe control your phone, all these different functions, and it's got painted graphics on the steering wheel. We want to be a little careful with these painted graphics. Over a period of time, there is a clear coating that's like a clear coat coating that's over these letterings, but that clear coat can start to break down and become compromised, and some cleaners, even the lightest of cleaners, can start to break down some of that painted lettering on there. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just simply use a microfiber towel for those areas, maybe put my cleaner on the microfiber lightly, and then I'll come in here with my finger and just kind of clean up around those areas, because those areas have to be clean too, because, you know, they're buttons, people are touching them, and we want to get up all the grease and grime. But I want to be careful around this area. I don't want to agitate it with a toothbrush. I don't want to use my non-abrasive Scotch-Brite pad. And again, even though it says non-abrasive, if you're not applying common sense, if you're applying too much pressure, anything is abrasive, folks. You just got to be a little careful. Apply some common sense when you go in here. But that, around the lettering, especially around your indicators for your signals and your windshield wipers and stuff, you'll see a lot of these painted lettering on these shift levers. You want to be careful around these areas. I don't like to agitate it with a brush. I want to just simply take a microfiber towel, get a little bit of cleaner on that, and go over that, so I'm not pulling off the painted lettering if the clear coat around those letters has begun to become compromised. Now, the other issue I want to bring up with steering wheels, it's one thing to clean the steering wheel all the way around with the appropriate cleaner, the appropriate brush, and hitting, you know, our shift lever up here, our little indicator for turning our signals on. That's all great. We want to dial that in. But a lot of steering wheels today, modern day steering wheels, or I should say modern day cars, these steering wheels are telescoping and they have the ability to go up and down. So I'm actually going to move this microfiber out of the way for a second. This particular steering wheel here actually has the ability to come out. And then what I'll do, because my customer actually has it set inside a little bit deeper into the dashboard, and I want to keep a mental note of that too. I want to try to get the steering wheel back in place for my customer where he likes it. But since he has it completely collapsed into the dashboard, I want to pull this sucker out. I also want to take the steering wheel and push it down. Not only do I want to telescope it out, I also want to kick the angle down. The steering wheel has both functions. And I want to clean all in the area that is kind of hidden when the steering wheel is completely collapsed into the dashboard. I can't tell you how many times I've come to detail somebody's car after somebody else has detailed it before, and my customer calls me because they might have been unhappy about the last detail that cleaned their car, this might be an area they're missing. Make sure you pull the steering wheel completely out if it's telescoping, and get yourself some cleaner on a microfiber towel. Sometimes I can get my toothbrush in there and clean up in there. A lot of dust and dirt can start to build up in that area, because here's the deal. My customer, maybe it's the man in the house, his arms are 5 feet long. He likes the steering wheel all the way collapsed into the dashboard, but maybe his wife drives the car, one of his kids drive the car, and they take the telescoping function and pull it out. Then all of a sudden they expose an area that you missed. This could be a reason why some of your customers are not calling you back, even after you think you've done a wonderful job. Make sure you get in there and clean those areas really well, especially if it's a telescoping and angle type of steering wheel. So that's just a little point I wanted to make. Now, there's another issue that I hear a lot when it comes to auto detailing, when it comes to detailing a steering wheel. Should we dress a steering wheel? Should we put some type of dressing on a steering wheel? I understand the issues with liability. I understand some professional detailers don't like to dress these things. I disagree, and I disagree carefully and respectfully, and I just wanted to pass it on to you, especially if you're a professional detailer. I may work on a customer's car that's rather old, right? I get all the grease and grime off the steering wheel. That's fine. The steering wheel's nice and clean. The customer appreciates that. I've had some customers look at me when I'm done, because I used to say I don't dress these steering wheels at all. But I've had customers look at me in the past and say, Scott, it looks great. It looks clean, but I know it's faded, because you got to remember the steering wheel's exposed to all that UV light that comes through the windshield, so they're going to get faded. Plus, we're touching them all the time. It's going to start to break down. But I've had customers look at me and say, it looks clean, Scott. I appreciate it. Wow, you're really detailed. You moved the steering wheel where you needed to get it, so it was all cleaned. But I don't like the fact that it's slightly faded. Yes, I know it's my fault. The car's older. Is there anything you can put on it at all to kind of make it pop a little bit, or restore some of that gloss that has been lost over the years? I used to tell my customers, no, because of liability, I don't want to put any dressing on it. But you know what would happen? Those customers would look at me like I have 3 eyes. And what they would do after I would leave, because they may call me back a couple months later to clean their car, and I knew they were doing it, they would go in their garage, take some Armor All, spray it on a microfiber towel, and actually put it on themselves. Now, when it comes to applying a dressing, something like Armor All, or something that's solvent-based, something that's got a tremendous amount of silicone in it, I'm not a fan and would never apply Armor All to a steering wheel. There's a reason for it. One, yes, I can spray it on a microfiber, put it on the towel. I can even take another dry microfiber, maybe kind of knock it down so it's not sticky, it's not slimy. But you got to remember, if you're using Armor All on a steering wheel, even if you think you've knocked all the material down with another dry microfiber, this thing is constantly being hit by the sun's rays and heat. Armor All products, or whatever you might be using that are solvent-based, they'll reactivate when they're under a tremendous amount of light or under a tremendous amount of heat. So I'm not going to use a product like that ever. I have never used that product before. But what I started to do is, because I know my customers are going to do it anyway after I leave, I will take, which is completely appropriate. There's nothing wrong with doing this. I don't see a liability in this, but you guys have to decide if that works in your world. If you think there's liability in there, don't do it. I'll take my Meguiar synthetic spray wax. I know how this stuff works. I'm using it all the time, and I don't have any issues with it. What I'll do is I'll simply spray some on my microfiber towel, and I'll come in on the steering wheel and just go around it, get all around it, and kind of apply that spray wax onto the steering wheel. And here's the deal with Meguiar synthetic spray wax, or even Meguiar's quick wax that I did a video on using it on a door panel. I simply take the dry side of my microfiber and I come in and I knock down that dressing that I just applied, the Meguiar synthetic spray wax. Now the steering wheel has it's got a nice satin, matte, crisp, new look to it. And if I've got a steering wheel that's slightly faded from years of being abused by the sun's rays, this will help a little bit. The Meguiar synthetic spray wax or the quick wax, whatever. And here's the deal with this stuff. Even when it's in direct sunlight, it doesn't reactivate like an Armor All product. It's not going to get slick. It's not going to get wet. It's not going to get greasy. I don't see a liability in it. But again, you guys have to decide if that works for your world. I hear a lot of professional detailers. I watch some videos. They go, oh God, I don't dress steering wheels at all. I don't want that problem. I get it. I understand it. But this stuff, after you knock it down, it's not slimy. It's dry to the touch. It doesn't reactivate under heat or UV light. I think it's completely appropriate for a steering wheel. And again, I don't want to have to sit there and look like a moron in front of my customer who, after I leave, is going to do something far worse. He's going to put Armor all over this thing, and then there is liability. But guess what? He put it on there. It's his issue. You know, he lives with those consequences. So I'm going to use Meguiar's synthetic spray wax, or I'm going to use the quick wax that you can buy on a retail level. All of these things dry completely to the touch. They'll give you a nice, crisp, satin matte look to it, even after the steering wheel's been faded a little bit. There's just some of my little tricks and tips and some of the things I do with cleaning a steering wheel. Again, you got to be careful around the buttons. And here's another tip too. A lot of manufacturers are using like these speed wheels, these little dials for the volume. When you're working on the steering wheel, and if you happen to touch one of those wheels that increases the volume, have a mental note in your head after you're cleaning the steering wheel. Make sure you turn that speed dial, that little turn dial, completely down again, because I have seen it where a customer gets in the car after I detailed it, maybe wants to turn the car on in front of me, and if that speed dial was hit, the volume dial was hit, and it was blasted, and the car turns on, and all of a sudden the guy jumps or the woman jumps in the seat, there's an issue with that. That kind of startles them. And there's customers who may have babies in car seats, and you're done detailing the car. They put their child in the back of the car. The baby's sleeping. They seatbelt the child in the back. Then they get in the car and turn it on. And if you forgot to turn the volume down, and the volume comes on like crazy, wakes the kid up, it's screaming. Trust me, your customers are going to remember you did that. Here's one last issue. I know this is a long issue about steering wheels. There is one time. I'm always looking, I'm always aware of who I'm working for, who are they as individuals. I'll be careful sometimes with the cleaner I may use, or even the type of dressing, even the synthetic spray wax dressing on a steering wheel, especially for women, especially for female drivers. It happens to be a customer who's a female, and I'll tell you why. I had a customer years ago where I was using some of these synthetic spray waxes that don't stain. They don't stain the leather. They're not going to stain any of the plastic components. It was appropriate. It was not greasy and slimy. But women like to do something when they're behind the wheel. They like to put makeup on when they're driving to work. A lot of women will use lip gloss. They'll use their finger to apply it to their lip. Here's a tip for you professional detailers. Whenever I'm detailing a woman's vehicle, or there's a woman in the house, I will ask them if they have any type of allergies or any type of issues with maybe this dressing, this polymer, fancy word, sealant that I might be applying on here. I had a woman who, of course, is touching the steering wheel, applying makeup with her finger, driving to work. We all know that's probably not the best thing to do, but she actually started to break out on her lips because some of that residue, some of the spray wax, let's be honest, it's on there. It's treating to some degree the leather steering wheel when I put it on there, and some women may be allergic to it. Some women may have some issues with it. That's a really rare case. But here's the deal, I ask, and you want to know something? My customers appreciate it. I ask whenever I know there's a woman driving the vehicle. I already know most of them are going to be wearing makeup and putting makeup on behind the steering wheel. I want to be careful what I'm putting on the steering wheel if they happen to have that habit. I've seen it, just wanted to throw it your way, extremely rare. But it also lets my customer know that I care, that I have a high level of awareness. I ask these questions of them and they go, wow, this guy really thinks deeply about detailing the car. You have to figure out if it works for you. But that's something I always ask, especially when I'm working for a female. I ask her, hey, listen, are you allergic to any type of sealants? She may not even know it or whatever, but she may know that she's highly sensitive to certain types of chemicals. I'm going to be a little curious about that when I'm working for a female, when I'm working for a lady and I'm dialing her car in. I'm going to ask those questions. Some tips, tricks, some of them may be silly to you, but I just wanted to go through them. The steering wheel is rather easy to clean. Just make sure you're getting all around the steering wheel, the back side of the steering wheel. Dial it all in. Be careful of the little white letterings. Be careful of the volume. If it makes sense in your world, if you've got a female that you might be using the vehicle, again, ask them, are they have any sensitivity to certain type of cleaners? That's an important question to ask sometimes, and you'll stand out when you do. I appreciate it, guys. And of course, it telescopes. Make sure you pull it all the way out. Get clean in back of the steering column. Try to keep a mental note where it was before you started to clean it. Customers will appreciate it if you can try to just get it back to where it was. I appreciate it so much, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, be kind to one another, love one another, and be safe, and we'll see you soon.